Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bastion Roundtable. Today, we've got James Christopher here with us from TMX. James is going to be here to talk about the industrial property space across Southeast Asia, current trends, any insights on the market he can provide, and just a bit of an update as to what's happening in this space. Before we get into it, I thought I'd just quickly introduce James and give him a bit of background. So James is the president of Asia for TMX based out of Singapore, and he's been with the business for just over 8 years now. Prior to working at TMX, James has worked at Construct and Australand in the construction and property development space. He holds a Bachelor of Applied Science in Construction Management from RMIT, and he has over 18 years of construction and property experience successfully delivering complex, automated, and high bay facilities for retailers and large companies like Woolworths, Kmart, Australia Post, Singapore Post, and Schneider Electric, to name a few. So why this space? Look, it's definitely of interest to us, and we've kind of briefly touched on it here before, but if you look at here locally in Australia, regionally across Asia Pacific, or even globally, there's two primary scenarios that have come out of COVID. So one is, and one of the main ones we're seeing is your company was strategic enough to have investment and capacity in your network to deal with surge in demand, and your competitors weren't, and thus creating an environment where you're experiencing hyper growth, and your network needs actually more capacity to deal with this rapid growth you're experiencing. The second is that you severely underinvested in your supply chain and physical assets and network, and you don't have enough capacity in your network to deal with what the current market conditions, and now you need to invest heavily to catch up. So there's two kind of primary ones. Obviously, there's other ones taking place in the network, in the market right now, but we're seeing a lot of consistencies in terms of businesses experiencing similar scenarios. Working with companies in the software space, specifically the WMS space, are exceptionally busy right now. If you talk to anyone in the automation vendor's background, more work than they know what to do with. And even market-leading consulting companies like TMX are experiencing high volumes of demand, and their services are in high need at the moment as well. Operational staff right now are in high demand. Anyone from the shop floor or leadership roles who have experience running these high-tech fulfillment centers are in high demand too, and really sought after, and actually are generating a premium for their services. And I guess with everything that we're seeing here at Bastion, and from talking to our clients and our candidates and our contacts in the market, it feels like this space is the kind of starting point for supply chain transformation right now. It's an incredibly important topic regionally across the network, and so nothing better to bring on an expert like James to kind of come on, give us a bit of insight in terms of what he's seeing, and see if we can learn a thing or two today. So first of all, James, thanks for coming on. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Tony. It's great to be with you.
Sure. So look, I guess just a simple question. How's the market right now? What are you seeing at the moment?
Well, look, the market's definitely changing, particularly through Southeast Asia. You can't just keep throwing more and more labour at warehouses and distribution centres like you once did. The rise of e-commerce, particularly during the COVID times, has really started to change people's perception of how you fulfil orders, how you get product to your customers quickly. Customers are expecting things to arrive within the hour in some instances, particularly here in Singapore. So it really is changing that view, particularly where once upon a time you just put more and more labor into a facility to make sure you deliver the products to your customers in time. So that's probably the real step change that's come out of COVID.
Sure.
The other thing is you can't put that labor in there because your social distancing, safe management measures, movement control orders and the like. It's changing that philosophy that sort of prevailed for a long time in this part of the world.
Sure. I mean, one of the trends we're seeing here is those, the middle ground in terms of automation. So intralogistics and the long-standing automation vendors like your ASRS and your conveyors and your sortation systems are heavy CapEx investment, right? And so now we're seeing some more cheaper and quicker options like your AMRs coming into the market. Are you seeing similar things being adopted more rapidly in Southeast Asia?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, AMRs and ACRs and
Yep.
any other form of mobile robotics
Sure.
is a real game changer for this part of the world. Because the growth is not known. It's not that consistent year-on-year growth that you often see with the more established retailers in Australia or New Zealand. So
Yep.
when you don't know what your growth profile looks like, these mobile robotics, not only can you deploy them quickly, 4 to 6 months, but they're also, you can scale them as your business grows or changes over the next 3 or 5 years, which you obviously can't do with that fixed automation of old.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. And what about in terms of industries? Are you seeing any, is it predominantly retail or FMCG or pharmaceutical, or do you have any specific industries that are a bit more active than others right now?
Look, the transformation in the e-commerce space is huge. Particularly, even in the 3PL space, there's a step change from a B2B model to a B2C model. Moving one pallet of goods versus individual goods is just such a different solution. So there's that step change and a real need to get your head around how each of those solutions changes. So there's not really one specific industry. Obviously pharmaceutical cold chain is
Sure.
a huge topic, particularly with the distribution of vaccines. Vietnam, the need for cold chain space is huge, and there's not a great deal of existing stock, and it's definitely not at an international standard. So the opportunities within emerging markets like Vietnam for things like really specific things like cold chain storage is really growing.
Sure. I know that's actually going to lead me into my next question. I was going to ask is, are there specific countries that are, I guess, moving forward or leading the pack in terms of, investment right now, or recognizing that there needs to be more capacity? You mentioned Vietnam in the cold chain space. Is there any other countries that are kind of moving forward ahead of the pack in that space right now?
Oh, look, Vietnam is definitely the one that's moving forward, and where we've got our biggest presence at the moment. But there's a lot of foreign direct investment going into Vietnam at the moment. There's a number of companies, leading electronics companies that are now looking at manufacturing in Vietnam, and it's probably to add capacity rather than fully move away from China. But as a result of that, that's then cascading down into investment in more international grade warehousing and the like. And we're now starting to see some of those more international REITs getting into Vietnam in a far bigger way to bring that sort of that next level of warehousing to more that European or Australian level into the market.
Yeah, interesting. Look, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you. I mean, when you are working with clients and in terms of operating some of these newer type tech-enabled facilities, do you have questions, or do you see constraints in terms of talent around capacity to work within these environments, especially let's say in a country that are more accustomed to working in, using labor as the primary driver for getting things done faster, just throw more bodies at it basically? Do you see any conversations around challenges working with some of this technology in some of these emerging markets?
100% you do. It's a step change for everyone. Even in Singapore, we're working with some customers at the moment where that transition from a manual facility to a more automated facility utilizing ACRs or AMRs is far more. It's a step change for them even within their business in Singapore. So it's definitely a constraint, but on the flip side, countries like Vietnam, you've got a young population that wants to learn, doesn't want to do these dirty, dark, dangerous jobs anymore. And at least, automation, helps you, get away from that. And it's far more from just, carrying heavy boxes all day to, potentially a sort of more technical role or something like that. So, huge constraint, but a huge appetite to learn, particularly in those emerging markets.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, and I know in terms of the services provided TMX, this is a little off center, but it's certainly a topic that's getting raised with me more and more now, that there's definitely an appetite for, innovative ways to design, build, and run these facilities. But there's clearly a gap in terms of people who, once they're built and once they're up and running, how do we actually get people who can get that ROI from the solution that's being designed or proposed? So it's definitely coming up more and more now, and even here locally, we've got clients who have either wanting to put AMRs in or put them in, but then it's that kind of that maintenance, that service level management, it's the operational usage to maximize their capacity and capability. That's definitely a challenge as well. So yeah, it's interesting, this particular topic, because it definitely feels like, it's certainly an area to be in. And I'm assuming you guys are incredibly busy with even just, inquiries and an interest in how can you help people at the moment.
There's definitely a lot of inquiry and a lot of interest, and it's helping these companies through that step change and that that real change in how things are done, that change in thinking. So there's definitely a lot of inquiry in the market, and I think it's been exacerbated by COVID and e-commerce, because people now actually understand what supply chains were, which they didn't necessarily 12 or 18 months ago. So it's definitely changing.
And look, just to kind of wrap it up here, James, I did want to give an opportunity for those. I'd be surprised if you're in a leading supply chain capacity who don't know a provider like TMX. But for those who don't, do you want to give us a bit of an intro in terms of service offering and how you guys operate and the type of work you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. So no, TMX really works with customers to help them on a transformation journey across their supply chain. So be that supply chain strategy, digital consulting, or more into the procurement and design of automation.
Yeah,
we're with our customer right from the start of that strategy all the way through to completion, utilising our project management and program management teams. We've got offices in Singapore, Vietnam, and obviously right through Australia, and now 2 offices in New Zealand as well. So we're growing, and we're about 150 or 160 people right across the region.
Wow. Okay. Well, look, it's an incredible growth story. Definitely happy for you guys. And for anyone who needs some support in terms of automation and facilities, they're the right place to turn to. So, look, that's probably all of it for today, James. Thanks again for coming on board. For anyone who's watching and has any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below, and we'll do the best that we can to get to them. So have a great day, and thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot for having me, Tony.